I've got mine.
Is everybody's screens working there? Should be. Should be on your screens. Mr. Chairman and Board, thank you. I'm honored to come here tonight and present the fiscal year 15-16 budget. And I was thinking in the months that we've been putting this budget together, not only are we looking forward at what we're going to accomplish in the coming fiscal year, it gives us a chance to look back at some of the things that we've been able to accomplish this year. And some of the items we've accomplished, when you look at the list, they've been no small feat. We completed a revaluation in-house. That's 44,000 parcels of property that our tax office assessed and appraised, and then right now is finishing up the appeals process with the Board of E&R. We estimate by keeping this reappraisal in-house that saved us over $1 million. Aside from completing the revaluation, we organized a health insurance committee, and that committee was tasked with taking a look at our health insurance plan, which was failing. It had declined, the net position in that fund had declined by 70% since 2009, and that committee made up of county employees came together and took actions necessary to, again, make that fund sustainable. And those actions were followed up by support of the Board of Commissioners. Aside from that, we will be completing the Parker Meadows project in this fiscal year. And as we all know, we have ran into some obstacles out there, but we've kept pressing on. We've kept moving forward. We have oversaw that with county staff. We have been actively involved. Our maintenance department has performed many tasks at that project, resulting in savings in areas where we would have otherwise had to contract out with a third party, and a savings of an estimated $300,000 to $500,000 by overseeing that project in-house with county staff. We have renovated the courthouse to make room to have a primary office for the district attorney in Macon County. We have been able to place SROs in all the schools in Macon County, with the exception of Union Academy, who shares an officer with South Macon, and Macon County Early College, that shares an officer with Franklin High School. We increased the capital outlay of the school system by $100,000 in the last fiscal year. We supported SEC in their expansion efforts by entering into a memorandum of understanding for the potential future use of county property in the event that SEC moves forward with their expansion efforts. We have purchased properties to expand our landfill that will lead to sustainability for the citizens of this county for years to come. By increasing this landfill 22 acres, we've increased our capacity 350% and increased the life of the landfill by 60 years. We have made accomplishments. Our health department received the Small Health Department of the Year award by the National Association of City and County Health Departments. This was given to them in Atlanta, and they received this award for their successful implementation of tobacco usage policies. So the laundry list is long, and the laundry list is extensive of the accomplishments that we have made in 14-15. But tonight, we're going to take a look at fiscal year 15-16 and what lies ahead. The fiscal year 15-16 budget, as proposed, is $46,646,357. Although that this is a $925,000 increase over the previous fiscal year budget, this increase is 100% supported by recurring revenues that have been generated through sales tax growth, an increase in the tax collection rates, and we've been able to do all this with no money appropriated from fund balance to balance the budget. Our debt has continued to decline, and we have still painted a picture of fiscal responsibility in Macon County. So first of all, I would like to look at a few things on the revenue side, or those things that are coming into this budget. Going back to the tax reappraisal and the revenue neutral tax rate, it was clear at our January 15th meeting of the Board of Commissioners that you gentlemen wanted me to propose to you a budget that was representative of a tax rate that did not exceed revenue neutral. This budget does not exceed the revenue neutral tax rate. And if you will turn in your budget message to page 28, you will see the general fund revenues by source. And when we're talking about a revenue neutral tax rate, we're talking about the tax rate as it applies to the real estate and personal property, the utility values, and the motor vehicle values for our county. And that piece of the tax collections piece of the pie there on page 28 accounts for the majority of that 57% of the overall revenue in the general fund. So to explain a little bit about this revenue neutral tax rate and how it was calculated, we calculated it in accordance with North Carolina General Statutes. In North Carolina General Statute 159.11 subsection E defines a revenue neutral tax rate as the rate that is estimated to produce revenue for the next fiscal year equal to the revenue for the current fiscal year if no reappraisal had occurred. So the first step in calculating that revenue neutral tax rate is to take a look at the revenue we would have received in this fiscal year had a revaluation not occurred. So our estimated tax base, when you combine the real and personal property values, the utility values, and the values of the motor vehicles in estimates provided by the tax office, that estimated tax base at fiscal year end was expected to be $9,486,120,000. Now, we all know what happened with the revaluation, and the values declined substantially as the revaluation results come in and were finalized. Our tax base has declined to $7,688,426,710. So to calculate the revenue neutral tax rate, we first applied the current tax rate of .00279 or 27.9 cents per $100 of assessed value to that $9,400,000 number that would be fiscal year end 14 and 15. When we do that calculation, we come up with $26,466,274. So with the 19.2% decline in tax base going into 15-16 and that new $7.6 billion number, .00345 or 34.5 cents per $100 of assessed value is needed to gain that $26,466,274 that we gained in the prior fiscal year. So that's the first part of the calculation. The second part of the calculation provides that a growth factor be used in calculating the revenue neutral tax rate based upon the average increase in tax base due to improvements since the last reappraisal. So the second part of calculating the revenue neutral tax rate is to come up with a growth rate. And we went to our comprehensive annual financial statements, our CAPR, and we looked in the statistical section, and it clearly lists, as provided to us by our auditors, those ending of year assessed values every year since the last revaluation. So we went year to year, calculated the growth rate for each year, and then came up with an average growth rate of 1.01% that our tax base has grown since the last revaluation. When you apply that growth rate to that .00345 or 34.5 cents per $100 of assessed value, you come up with a revenue neutral tax rate of 34.9 cents per $100 of assessed value. When you're doing revenue neutral calculations, you do the calculations based on 100% collection rate. We all know that our collection rate is not 100%. Revenue the current fiscal year due to an improvement in our collection rates. For real and personal property and utilities, the collection rate improved from 96.79% in fiscal year 14-15 to 97.34% in fiscal year 15-16. Our motor vehicles collection rate improved from 87.32% in fiscal year 14-15 to 92.24% in fiscal year 15-16. And the drastic improvement in the motor vehicle tax collection rate is due to the implementation of the North Carolina Tax and Tag program. That is, you can attribute that increase in collection rate directly to that program. The additional revenue generated through these improved collection rates is $202,993. When you factor in that 1.01% growth rate to the 0.00345, that additional 1.01% growth rate gains an additional $280,680 in revenue. So as I said, going in, we have additional revenue due to improved tax collections. We have also seen positive growth in our sales tax, and this is growth that's being realized statewide. Through the April payment, North Carolina local sales taxes were up 13%. They're projecting this growth to stabilize, but by the end of the year, North Carolina on average should see about 7% growth in sales tax. The North Carolina Association of County Commissioners in our revenue forecast for 15-16 recommends budgeting sales tax at 3 to 4%. And that is largely attributable to two Senate bills that are out there right now, Senate Bill 608 and Senate Bill 369, which you've heard us discuss, that are redistribution of sales tax. And what they do is eventually it will totally take the local sales tax. It will go to the state, and then the state will distribute it out on a per capita basis rather than what we're used to with the point of sale. Under Senate Bill 369 and the calculations we've received, by fiscal year 18-19, if this Senate bill goes through, Macon County could stand to lose as much as $1.1 million in sales tax revenue. In Macon County, our local sales tax was up 10.35% through the February payment. We're projecting through the end of fiscal year 14-15 for our sales tax collections to finish somewhere between 6 and 7%. And in using that number, we have arrived at a projected sales tax figure for fiscal year 14-15 of $6,550,110. Going into fiscal year 15-16, we have budgeted 3% growth on top of this number, and sales tax has been budgeted at $6.742 million, which accounts for about 15% of our revenues in our general fund. And I was speaking with some colleagues around the region. There are some counties that are surrounding us that are budgeting as high as 7% in sales tax growth for the coming fiscal year. And with the uncertainty that's surrounding these Senate bills, and with the conservative approach that we have always taken in budgeting, we decided that 3% would allow us would be representative of a sales tax level that if something does happen to sales tax, and if these discussions continue, we will still be in a position where we have not tied any operating expenses and made them dependent on a sales tax level that could potentially hurt us in the future. As I mentioned earlier, we will continue to enjoy a stable financial position. Our fund balance will continue to improve. Our fund balance will continue to grow. Our fund balance will continue to remain at a level above that of our peers and above the average of the state of North Carolina. In fiscal year 13 and 14, these are actual figures. On 13-14, we ended with about 34.67% in fund balance. We are going, that is fund balance as a percentage of expenditures. In fiscal year 14-15, even with the appropriation of funds for the Parker Meadows complex, which we appropriated $500,000 for out of fund balance, our fund balance will still grow. from fiscal year 13-14. Our debt will continue to decline. Since 2011, our debt has decreased by over $18 million, leaving our debt as it stands right now outstanding to around $44 million. Our debt payments in this year are going to fall by about $465,000. That will give us the opportunity with these freed up expenditures to direct them to other areas in the organization where we have needs that are unfulfilled moving into 15-16. We've talked about the revenues. The fiscal year 15-16 proposed budget will continue to focus expenditures in priority areas. It will continue to improve the quality of service in this organization, and it will enable us to take on additional responsibilities brought about by things such as the Parker Meadows project becoming operational and the additional responsibilities that came as a result of revisions to the health insurance plan. So we will be able to do all this in the coming year. Historically, and you can see through past funding levels, Macon County has always made public safety and education a primary focus with our budget. This year, in terms of education, we will continue to support the school's operating needs. Operating needs will be budgeted at fiscal year 14-15 levels at $7,338,000. We will, in addition to that, increase the school's capital outlay line item again this year by $100,000, bringing that to $300,000, with $50,000 earmarked to go toward the track renovations and Highlands school softball field renovations, which we are doing as part of the QZAP project. Southwestern Community College, we will increase our operating funding to them by $10,000. This will go towards covering an increase in the maintenance contract, as well as helping offset some of the costs that are incurred as maintenance staff from the Jackson County campus comes to the Macon campus to perform work. And at the end of the day, when you look at our contribution in Macon County to education, we're 20% of our overall budget goes towards education and goes toward providing the students in this community with the highest quality education possible. Public safety, we will, to start with, in our emergency management department, there will be 2 additional dispatchers that have been recommended in this budget. What has happened there in emergency management since 1994 was the first year that we began staffing the dispatch with 2 full-time 24/7 dispatchers. And in this fiscal year, in 1994, dispatch received 10,399 calls per service. In 2015, dispatch received over 33,000 calls per service. And we're still operating and staffing that 911 communications at 1994 levels with 2 24/7 dispatchers. We've included 2, again, additional dispatchers through an increase in the part-time line item to the emergency medical services. We will be able to operate 5 ambulances 24/7 in Macon County and have them running. Right now, we operate 5 ambulances with the exception of one 24-hour shift, or one, 12-hour shift on Sundays from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. And again, that addition to the part-time line item will enable a fully 24/7, 5 ambulances function. In the detention center, with the cooperation of the sheriff and a commitment by Mission Hospital to begin providing oversight for the involuntary commitments that are housed there, we will be able to add 4 full-time staff to the detention center. And when I talk about the commitment by Mission Hospital, that is substantial, because we ran the numbers and it was estimated that we were spending approximately $196,000 a year just in the oversight for involuntary commitments while they were waiting to be transported to an approved facility at Mission Hospital. So as Mission picked that up, we were able to we were able to reduce those by $172,600 and add that to the salaries line item, enabling us to put 4 new staff there. And speaking with the sheriff, this is a great thing. This, as we will all remember, 14-15, I think it was 4 attempted escapes in fiscal year 14-15, with 2 being successful and 1 resulting in a homicide. The sheriff feels that by doing this, and he's here, but I'll speak for him, I guess, that this will directly contribute to improved security at this facility and going towards keeping those citizens in our community safe. The public safety portion of the budget is about 1/4 of our general fund expenditures. And again, if I could direct your attention, that's on page 31 of your budget notebook if you want to look at all expenditures by function. We will improve our service quality. There has been $236,500 in capital improvements budgeted in the information technology department this year. One of those improvements happens to be the $72,000 purchase of a new phone system. And to give a little bit of history on that, we had a period during this fiscal year where our phones, our voicemail was down for a month. And you know, this, as phones play a direct role in how we communicate and how we provide public service to the citizens of Macon County, it's imperative that we have a phone system that's reliable and a phone system that we can depend on. When we install this system at $72,000, it is going to be an IP or an internet-based phone system. What this is going to do to our operating costs, not only are we going to have a new phone system, but it's going to substantially reduce our long-distance bill, and it's going to take away the need for a nearly $60,000 a year maintenance that we're spending on this current phone system that's 18 years old. We've ran the numbers. We expect that in next year's budget, we will see operating costs related to our phone system reduced by $86,000 following the implementation of this new phone system. Aside from the installation of the phone system and information technology, we're also installing a SAN data storage network. And right now, currently, how we store all the data at the county, the servers that we store that on are full. Their IT is having to constantly move stuff around. And if you all will remember, this has been being discussed for quite some time by information technology. They brought it to budget work sessions for about the last 3 or 4 years. And it has gotten to a point where we just can't put it off anymore. We had a situation just last week where we had some earlier this week where we had a guy here working on this SAN system all week. We totally lost our capability to log into Munis, and it's a direct result of the data overpopulating our current system. So we have budgeted for half of the replacement cost this year, and we plan on budgeting for the other half next year. And if I'm not mistaken, that was budgeted at about $98,000 for one half replacement. Fiscal year 15-16. Macon County Transit, through grant funding, will improve its service quality. It'll get 4 new lift-equipped vans, and it will have an electronic fare card system installed in each transit vehicle that will be a complement to the VET grant and the software and hardware that we bought as part of that. It will dovetail with it. Furthermore, through grant funding, they have received funds to equip 4 transit vehicles with propane upgrades. This will substantially reduce our reliance on fuel, thereby reducing our reliance on fuel costs, thereby allowing us to keep our rates in transit at an affordable level. Overall, the fiscal year 15-16 budget contains $978,500 in capital improvements. And again, this is a noteworthy feat, as we used no fund balance to balance this budget. And we were able to incorporate needed vehicles in departments that needed vehicles. We were able to upgrade our information technology systems that were in dire need of repair. And we were able to increase our capital outlay contribution to the Macon County schools. We have taken on additional responsibilities, as I mentioned earlier, implementations of the recommendations that were presented to this board for health insurance plan revisions will cost $530,000. That's a direct increase to our operating costs, as the county will be increasing its contributions into that fund. With these changes, however, we expect for this fund to again become sustainable. We expect to begin building the net position in this fund and getting it back to where it needs to be. I have recommended a 2% cost of living adjustment for Macon County employees in the absence of being able to implement the final phase of the pay plan that was begin implementation on 13/14. In saying that, I have also addressed and highlighted in my budget message, I would like to form a group of county employees to take a closer look at some of those recommendations in that pay plan. There are some areas in there, including the basis of rewarding based on years in position rather than rewarding based on years in the organization. We ran the numbers on that. What you have is you've got situations where you've got two 20-year employees. One 20-year employee's been in the same position for 20 years. Another 20-year employee went either laterally or moved up in the organization, basically wherever the organization needed it for her. But if they change positions, then this same 20-year employee, this 20-year employee would say salary would increase by $5,000. This one would increase by $800. So there's a little room there that I feel like creates some disenfranchisement toward the organization. I would like to take a look at that, and as well as compare our salaries and benefit package to some other counties that are close proximity, and maybe expand a little bit on that Springstead pay study, and hopefully bring our results or our findings from that study group back before the board sometime in the next fiscal year. The Parker Meadows complex, and this picture right here, we were out there the other day, and this just doesn't do it justice. This was made when we first got started, and if you go out there now, those buildings are going up. Chairman and I rode out there the other day. The buildings are going up. There's starting to be some paving going on. The grass is coming in and looks great. It's going to be a first-class, state-of-the-art facility out there at Parker Meadows. But we knew in 14-15 that it would result in some increases to the operating budget. These increases are minimal, but at the same time, these increases will be able to take on the operation of this facility. What we're going to do is we're going to add, I have proposed to add a maintenance supervisor in the building and grounds budget that in season will be at Parker Meadows full time. Aside from that, there are 3 people paid out of the maintenance budget that currently work at the recreation park. We will move one of those to Parker Meadows during peak season, so you'll have 2 full-time people at Parker Meadows complex during peak season, as well as when needed. We have put additional money in the recreation part-time line item, and part-time staff can come assist as needed. And as I understand and have been speaking with Seth, he has already been speaking with some tournament directors and maybe have some things in the works for later on in the fall. So that will come into play right off the bat. Also, Seth's operating budget has had money put in there to buy things like portable mounts, bases, and things that facility will need once it gets up and becomes operational. As I close, I would just like to say it has been a great year in 14-15. We have made some great accomplishments. We have been fiscally responsible. We have continued to provide the citizens of Macon County with what I feel is a great and high quality level of public service. And as we head into 15-16, I feel like this proposed budget has the tools to be sure that that level of service improves, to be sure that we're able to take on additional responsibilities that we will be taking on due to capital projects and increasing contribution levels to our health insurance fund. And I feel like that it is representative of, again, a very conservative approach on the revenue side. It gives us security for the uncertainties that currently are in the state legislature in Raleigh, and it will put us in position and ready for whatever comes our way in the future. So again, it is my pleasure and my honor to present to you the fiscal year 15-16 proposed budget. And I have distributed to you your budget notebooks. The first thing up, it kind of gives a high-level 50,000-foot view of everything that's going on in this budget, as well as the justification behind the recommendations that are contained in this budget. So if you would, I would encourage you to take a look at that and before our work session, and please feel free to contact us anytime with any questions. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. I will say, Mr. Roland, you have, at least at first glance, have done an outstanding job of carrying out the wishes and desires of this board. We did ask you, in no uncertain terms,